All right, gang, today we're gonna answer 27 questions about West Coast swing. What I did was I typed West Coast swing into Google and all the questions that popped up, we're gonna answer them for you in this video. So what is the difference between East Coast swing and West Coast swing, Miss Megan?
West Coast swing is a slotted dance.
West Coast swing is a slotted dance, so the partner's coming up and down the slots. It's like there's train tracks and I'm getting out of the way. East Coast swing also has walks and triples, but it doesn't matter which direction we head off to in the slot. It doesn't matter which direction we kind of move around. You're going to see it move around all sorts of different ways. So that's the difference between East Coast and West Coast. West Coast is slower, East Coast is faster. They both came out of Lindy Hop. West Coast swing evolved more naturally on the West Coast. Different music styles than the East Coast. What is the basic step of West Coast swing? There's 3 basic steps.
3, at least.
So the easiest way to understand this, there are pushes, sometimes called a sugar push. There are passes, left and right side pass, that's a left side pass, and there are whips. Now there's probably about 7 or so basic patterns that you'll learn in any beginner class, but those are the 3 basic patterns of West Coast swing, so this video doesn't last 100 years. Is West Coast swing the same as country swing? I'm gonna let you start with that.
No.
No, country swing, again, is a little bit more like East Coast. They call it, works in star patterns. It's done with different timings. We do it with quick, quick, slows, quick, quick, slow, quick, quick, slow, quick, quick, slow, quick, quick, slow. So again, a lot like East Coast swing. So it is not the same dance at all, although it is currently being influenced by West Coast swing.
Hey, there you
we
go.
saw in Arizona, we saw some country swing dancers, and I kept thinking I was seeing West Coast swing, but it's just the West Coast swing influence in a country swing. Is West Coast swing 6 or 8 counts? Yes. Both. Your pushes and passes are your 6 count patterns. The whips are 8 counts.
Yes.
But then it goes crazy after that. You can get patterns that extend up to 14, 16 counts.
True. Very true.
Is West Coast swing easy?
No.
I have a great quote. One of my former dance partners owned a studio. They said, someone walked in the door and said, which dances are easier or harder? And she said, a brilliant comment, shout out to Miley Ulrich, every dance is easy to do, every dance is hard to do well. So to learn the basics, not particularly hard. Question that's not on here.
I disagree for West Coast swing.
It is, we're gonna get there because there's questions. Which is the next question, strangely enough. Google knows. How hard is West Coast swing? Harder than your other dances.
Because it's different from every other
It's different,
dance.
right? Like dances that worked mirrored, I say mirrored like rumba. I go forward, you go back. I go side, you go side. It works in a box. Cha-cha, where it's mirrored, I'm rocking back, you're rocking forward. Has a home base that it comes back to. Those dances are typically easier. The basic repeats itself.
Yeah. West Coast swing is hard because, first of all, you're starting away from each other.
Yeah, it's also, when I have 2 hands on my partner, it's much easier to communicate with one another. Even ballroom dancing, I have my entire body. Here, we're stuck communicating through all these joints. It's pretty tricky. So, is it hard? Yes, it's harder than other dances. Is it a spot dance or slot dance? That kind of goes, East Coast swing would be a spot dance. Country swing would be a spot dance. Slot dance would run up and down a slot. Right? A spot dance just stays on the spot, and then you'd have traveling dances like waltz, foxtrot, tango that move around the outside of the floor, 2-step. So it is a slot dance. Which is easier, East Coast or West Coast? Probably East Coast.
Probably East Coast.
Probably
just
East Coast,
because of the connection that you have with your partner. You can do, you can do it with 2 hands or you can do it in closed hold, but
And it's a
just
repeating
overall
basic.
It's easier.
All of your first basic patterns are going to be triple step, walk, walk. And it's going to stay that way for a while, and you can social dance all night long with just that rhythm, where West Coast swing gets trickier faster. Is Lindy Hop West Coast swing? West Coast swing is the long cousin. So got a Lindy Hop dancer, a famous guy named Dean Collins, I think in the 30s, moved from the East Coast, from New York area, to the West Coast to become famous in films, and he brought his style of swing dancing to the West Coast. Shag also in the Carolinas, and so Lindy Hop, Charleston before that, but Lindy Hop is the grandfather of them all, and they evolved, the swing dances evolved differently around the country depending upon the influences of music and culture. Who leads in West Coast swing? Well, that's debatable.
Well, now, everybody.
Everybody, so it used to be traditionally men led and ladies followed. Now it's leaders and followers, so there's plenty of great...
Literally anybody can do
any
lead.
Role. But there is a leader role, so in my case, if I'm starting this off, I am the leader, right, and I'm directing the patterns. At the highest level of West Coast swing, it becomes a conversation, meaning I feed Megan something, but she takes something and she's communicating to me. That was a very good job, actually. So at its highest level, when you become skilled at it, it becomes more like a conversation where it's not purely one person doing all of the leading, but the follower is taking that information and taking his or her own liberties within it, which creates more of a conversation like that pattern we just did. What is the rhythm in West Coast swing? Walks and triples, right? So walks and triples, if we do our left side pass, walk, walk, triple step. If we did a whip, walk, walk, triple step, walk, walk, triple step. So walks and triples are your two rhythms. Is West Coast swing still popular? Yeah,
Yes,
absolutely.
definitely.
And I would argue, I don't have stats on this, but with the advent of YouTube, back in the early 2000s, there was no YouTube, so you had to know someone or buy a DVD. We even learned Zook from DVDs. But as YouTube has allowed us to see it everywhere, this is propped up. I don't know if you've seen this. I've asked people, how'd you learn West Coast swing? They're just Googling TikTok and they see something, it looks cool. They go, I want to do that, and they look it up. So yes, it's probably more popular now than ever. What's the easiest swing dance to learn?
Single time
Single time swing. Single time swing. So they would call this jitterbug, where we just go slow, slow, quick, quick, slow, slow, quick, quick, slow, slow, quick, quick, slow.
And it's
slow,
fun.
Quick, quick, right? Typically done to faster music, so I don't have to do the triple steps. If the music slows down, East Coast swing with the triple steps. How do you practice West Coast swing alone? You can practice everything outside of connection, and I argue that when it's done at the highest level, you have two skilled dancers to move their own bodies, and even connection to me comes down to my ability to move through my feet properly rather than just stumping myself there, right? So my own ability to move my body, and I can practice that. We do this with my students. Push, pass, and whip. Push, right? I can do a pass, right side pass in that case for me, or a whip. Can I do all my footwork by myself, right? And then we're gonna do a push, pass, and a whip, and I'm playing with my footwork. Megan's trying to figure out my timing. 2, 3, 4, and 5, 6, 7, and 8. So my favorite drill is a push, pass, and a whip, and then take whatever you're practicing, footwork, styling, anchor styling, and you can practice it on your own. What is a fact about West Coast swing? A fact?
A fact?
Let's click and see. It's a form of swing dancing.
In a slot.
Dance in a slot to a moderate tempo of blues, R&B, and in recent times contemporary music. It's a smoother, sexier version of the swing dance family. Its basic patterns are both 6 and 8 beats, but those patterns can be varied by 2-beat increments.
Wow.
Swingshoes.net,
Good answer.
I agree. What is a West Coast swing triple step? A triple step is 3 beats, or 3 steps,
3 steps.
and 2 beats of music. So typically, any triple step, we have 2 beats of music. If we walked on those 2 beats, we'd go 1, 2. If we triple step, we'd go 1 and 2. So the first beat of music, you're splitting it in half, doing a half, half, and a whole. If we did it again, half, half, whole. So that's a triple step in any dance. They're all over West Coast swing. How do you get good at West Coast swing? My buddy Lee Easton. He says footwork drills, counting music, balance and posture drills, practicing without a partner,
Yes.
reviewing, finding a West Coast swing role model. That's a good one. Counting out loud and using a prop. So a prop could be, what have we used? Elastic bands.
Dynabands. I don't think they're called that anymore, but Dynabands.
Dynabands.
Stretch, helping with connection.
If there was a wall, Miss Megan's going to become a wall. My favorite anchor step drill is to not just be in my anchor position, but roll myself back until I feel the wall. So using a prop. So thank you, Mr. Lee Easton, eastonswing.com. Is West Coast swing fun? I think anyone watching this video would argue yes. What are the levels of West Coast swing?
Newcomer, novice, intermediate, advanced, all-star, and
Yes, champions. So competitively, we
think-
have newcomer, novice,
I think there's something new
intermediate,
in there now, but I can't
advanced, all-stars, and champions. I like to say there's 4 levels of learning: beginner, intermediate, advanced, and understanding your beginner stuff on a higher level, which typically comes after you've been at it for a long time. You're willing to dig into the details. How do you walk in West Coast swing?
Heel to toe or toe to heel?
Yep, so how do you walk? Not like you have blocks on the bottom of your feet, meaning I'm not gonna walk mindlessly onto my foot. I'm gonna choose how I'm walking onto my foot. If I'm moving backwards, I'm moving from the toe to the heel. And how quickly I transfer the weight is just a preference, right? Do I want to dance a quick weight transfer and be right on the foot, kind of staccato? Do I want to roll through and be a little bit smoother and silkier? Same thing for the followers moving forward. You've got a couple different options.
Followers, to maintain connection, the easiest one is to go heel to toe, rolling through the feet. But you can also do the same thing, going toe to heel. It's just a little harder.
Miss Megan dances toe to heel. Brandy
I do a combination.
Guild dances. What are the 3 types of swing? Oh man, there's a ton of types of swing, but what does this say? Lindy Hop, blues, and West Coast swing is what Hepcat says.
Wheel.
What is the most popular swing dance? Lindy Hop.
Oh, look at that.
Yep, I would agree with
wouldn't
that. Who is the king of country swing? Oh, this guy's been on YouTube. Where is he? Oh,
Bob Wills.
the king of country swing is James Robert Willis, as
Wills,
Wikipedia
not
says.
Willis.
Wills. Is West Coast swing a ballroom dance? We did a video on this, and typically no.
No.
I would say typically.
Although they do have it at ballroom dance competitions.
Yep, typically in your ballroom dance studio, waltz, foxtrot, tango, cha-cha, rumba, swing are the 6 main dances that you'll learn at a ballroom dance studio. I guess the dance historians might have a different take, that ballroom dancing just means partner dancing, so in that case it would be. Would you see it typically in a ballroom studio? It would not be the first thing you saw. How many beats per minute is West Coast swing? It's slowed down. So this is a fairly old article, and it says 112 to 128.
That is fast.
Now you probably see music speeds in the 80s, 90s, around 100 beats a minute. What are the best street shoes for West Coast swing?
Toms.
Toms. Toms are very popular. What's this article say?
Toms.
Toms. There it is. Yeah. What do you wear to a West Coast swing dance class?
Normal clothes.
Normal clothes. Whatever you're comfortable in.
Stretchy pants.
Comfortable clothes. Whatever you would casually wear to look smart, as they say in England.
Or comfy.
Who invented West Coast swing? This is hilarious. Do you know what this says?
No. Whatever you said.
It used to say, who invented West Coast swing, and a picture of me came up.
No, he did not invent it.
I did not invent it at all. I don't know that anyone invented it.
It kind of evolved.
It evolved. It evolved out of Lindy Hop. Dean Collins was the person who brought Lindy Hop to California, and it developed much differently there. So
Also, every time you open one of these, it adds more.
it does add more. This might be 127. What's the difference between jive and West Coast swing?
Well, same difference between East Coast and West Coast swing, except for jive is
Much faster.
super fast and kicks and.
Much faster, probably like 160 beats a minute. A lot of kicks. So East Coast swing would be done a little slower, like this speed, triple step, a rock, a step, and jive would be about at this speed. And you'd see a lot of kickball change, that type of action.
All the kicks.
Which is not to be confused with modern jive, which is another popular dance. Is Western swing jazz? Western swing has
I'm gonna say no. 'Cause
been
I don't like
defined as
jazz
a
music.
form equally hard to define as jazz music. No.
I think that's a music question.
What are the 4 steps to swing dance? Well, that's good. I don't know.
There's a
Rock
ballroom.
steps, triple steps, 2 basic steps. Why is it called West Coast swing? That's a funny story. So when the East Coast swing moved to the West Coast, Lindy Hop moved to the West Coast, the ballroom studios at the time started to call it Western swing. It was the form of swing dancing being done and evolving differently on the West Coast. So they called it Western swing for a little bit, and then I don't know who actually tagged the name historically. I could look it up. It's on our website. The historians are tracking back the first known reference to West Coast swing, but some people found out that calling it Western swing made people think that it was Western, and that wasn't a very cool name. So the name started to be called West Coast swing. Is swing dance sensual?
I mean, not like bachata.
I would say in the scope of things, no. What are the most iconic dance styles in West Coast swing? This says the popping and locking were born in modern.
I don't think that's right.
Yeah, no. All sorts of things have I think. So you think you could dance, and all the modern-y type movements and the slowing down of music has influenced it recently. Zouk has influenced it recently. Those are probably the 2, in my opinion, like main influences in my time on the dance floor. Is swing dancing good for beginners? Heck yes. What do you wear to a swing dance? Normal people clothes. How do you physically prepare for the West Coast Trail? That's not relevant. Why do I love West Coast swing? Why do you love West Coast swing? It's the most versatile partner dance. If people have asked me like what's my favorite dance, and I generally have 3 answers, I say if I had to pick one to dance for the rest of my life, it'd be West Coast because it's the most versatile.
Also, best like variety of
variety
songs.
music, takes up relatively little space. You don't need a ballroom studio to dance West Coast Swing.
It's also freer. You're not always in a
very free.
closed hold.
Yeah, that was one of the hallmarks of West Coast Swing, is swing dancing used to be done in closed hold, and one day someone let go of their partner and they
There's
danced back to each
freedom.
other, and they realized that if they did a push to a breakaway position, they had all the freedom of solo dancers with still connection. But my other two loves, it goes back and forth, my other two dance styles that I like. What are your other two that you like?
Two-step, because I like to spin.
Yep, I like Cha-Cha East Coast, and two-step or polka dancing with you. What's the difference between West Coast Swing and Boogie Woogie? I don't
Don't know what boogie woogie is.
What is the difference between swing and jitterbug? Jitterbug is...
Swing is an all-encompassing
Yep.
name. Jitterbug is also kind of just a name of
I argue that
things.
jitterbug is not actually a dance. We have a video called Jitterbug, but it was actually a slang term that was being... if you were a swing dancer of the time, you were known as a jitterbug. So if you know, my grandparents danced jitterbug. That was really just a slang term. Like in West Coast Swing, you might be known as a Westie. You're a Westie dancing West Coast Swing. Westie is not a dance, but who knows? We fast forward 50 years and they might go, my grandfather was a Westie. How do you swing dance for beginners?
push, pass, and whip.
Yep. Is West Coast Swing easy? We covered that. What makes West Coast Swing different? Or how is West Coast Swing different?
Than other dances.
I think the freedom of this
connection away is what makes West Coast Swing totally different.
different,
from
and it
everything else.
allows for a lot of styling and two-beat increments while still being connected. So I think it's the most versatile dance form. How do you lead in West Coast Swing? Oh, this is a good one. How do you lead in West Coast Swing?
By being connected away from your partner.
Yep, so I have to have some sort of connection either away or towards.
Or
and
towards.
we even argue rotationally in some cases. You can lead with that. But there are a bunch of different ways. I can lead by stepping back. I can lead with rotation. And I can lead by shortening the distance either by dropping my arm or by raising my arm. So there'd be three
Boom, there you go.
good ways to lead West Coast Swing. Can I wear jeans to a dance class? Yes. How long does it take to get good at West Coast Swing? That's probably gonna be an article of us.
Lifetime.
Yeah, a lifetime. Every dance is easy to do. Every dance is hard to do well.
Depends on what you view as good.
Yeah, how do you get good at West Coast? How long does it take? I have an answer.
Good.
12 hours.
There you go.
12 hours. If you do something for 12 hours, you'll be like in the top 1% of people in the world doing it that quick. Is West Coast Swing popular? Yes. What kind of music is used in West Coast Swing? Boy, anything.
Pop music. particularly.
Anything that's reasonably under 120 beats a minute, you'll see West Coast Swing done to. At West Coast Swing events, they will walk out and try to dance West Coast Swing to a waltz or things that are not known as West Coast Swing. So,
Yes.
is East Coast Swing the same as Lindy Hop? No.
Do you spin in West Coast Swing? Yes, you do.
Do you spin in West Coast Swing? Oh, look at that.
And it's
Miss
me.
Megan's spin video. So, do you spin in West Coast Swing? Yes. Boom. And let's end with this question right here. How does West Coast Swing work? How does West Coast Swing work? Well, it works that there is a leader role and a follower role.
Yes.
We have agreed upon patterns that we start with, pushes, passes, and whips. And as we expand the vocabulary of patterns, it allows us to do more things. But fundamentally how it works is you wait until I initiate whatever pattern we're doing. And then at the end of the anchor, you wait. So it's not what I would call a self-generating dance, where like in hustle, once we start moving, I'm not leading each of those steps. The rhythm would still stay in our bodies, same as like salsa. I would begin, but the rhythm would be going by itself. Whereas in West Coast Swing, it's like stay, we lead a pattern, it resolves with the anchor step, and we know another one's coming, but there's this moment of resolve, and we might even hang out there for a little bit before we lead the next pattern. So there you go, 27 or more questions answered about West Coast Swing. If you want to get crazy, I'm gonna link up our blog, West Coast Swing Online. Down the bottom, popular articles. We have like 400 blog posts on every esoteric question that you've had about West Coast Swing, from styling to anchor steps to music to how to learn faster. So head on over there. We'll link that up in the corner. Love you guys. We'll see you on the dance floor soon.